Welcome back to our channel. What is Cott thinking, seeking out Bill just because of his new wife, Hayley? Does Cott have any evidence to support her accusations against Bill regarding Hayley? Will Bill side with Hayley or will he be suspicious of her? The story of Bill's blind love is always a topic that frustrates viewers. This time, with Cott pointing out her suspicions about Hayley to Bill, will Bill become suspicious of Hayley or will Cott be the one to face Bill's wrath? Cott and Bill, we all knew, basically everyone who has been paying even a tiny bit of attention knew this collision was inevitable, but the way it actually played out. This is what's been bothering me. Why did it have to go down exactly like that? Cott walks in there, right? She steps into that room, and you can just feel the palpable weight of the truth she is carrying. She confronts Bill directly, straightforwardly, no beating around the bush. She lays out the clear, undeniable evidence of Hayley's recent misconduct. And when I say clear, the show made a point to emphasize that these aren't just vague suspicions. These are concrete, tangible accusations backed by actual proof. But what exactly is the threshold for proof in Bill's mind? Is he literally blind? Because here is the thing that is just baffling to me. Bill's reaction. He doesn't just disagree. He doesn't just say, "Hey, let me look into this." No, he immediately explodes in this volcanic, terrifying anger. Did you guys catch the way his face literally changed color? It was like a physical transformation. The blood rushed to his face, his jaw clenched. The veins were popping. It wasn't just a defensive posture. It was an aggressive, feral reaction to hearing the person he is protecting being attacked. But why? If you are genuinely confident in someone's innocence, your first reaction is usually confusion, right? You look at the documents, or the photos, or whatever Cott brought, and you try to intellectually process the discrepancy. But Bill bypasses the prefrontal cortex entirely. He goes straight into a primitive, emotional amygdala hijack. Strange, really strange. The whole thing is strange. It makes me wonder, is Bill overcompensating because deep down, on some subconscious level, he knows Hayley is guilty, or maybe not? I don't know. Maybe he is just so thoroughly, deeply entrenched in his savior complex that any attack on Hayley is perceived as a direct, existential attack on his own identity. If Hayley is a fraud, then Bill is a fool, and Bill's ego cannot tolerate being a fool. So instead of processing the information, he completely short-circuits. He vehemently denies every single allegation. He doesn't even give the evidence a cursory glance. He just categorically states that Cott is misunderstanding the situation. But then he takes it a step further. And this is where the psychology gets incredibly dark and, frankly, kind of disturbing. He starts suggesting that Cott is being manipulated. He actually looks at Cott's strong, independent, perceptive Cott and tells her that someone else is pulling her strings to turn her against Hayley. Let's just pause and unpack the sheer hypocrisy of that statement. Bill, the man who has been practically hypnotized by Hayley's machinations for months, is accusing Cott of being manipulated. It is a textbook example of psychological projection. He is taking his own vulnerability, his own blind spots regarding Hayley, and projecting them entirely onto Cott. It's like he's living in an inverted reality. Wait, could there actually be someone manipulating Cott? I think episode. What was it? Maybe around episode 842 or something near that. There was that shady character lingering around the corporate offices. Maybe they handed Cott the files. But that doesn't explain why the files themselves would be fake. Cott is smart. She wouldn't just take a random envelope and run to Bill without verifying it. She did the legwork, so Bill's theory that she's a pawn is just completely baseless. And speaking of baseless, let's talk about how Bill attempts to completely derail and shift the entire paradigm of the argument. When the "you're being manipulated" angle doesn't immediately break Cott's resolve, he pivots to an even more malicious accusation. He claims that Scott is deliberately fabricating this entire narrative. He accuses her of intentionally trying to cause chaos and sabotage his relationship with Hayley. I mean, wow. Just wow. The sheer audacity to look at someone who is trying to save you from a toxic situation and accuse them of being the toxic one. He is essentially telling Scott that she is a malicious actor, a villain who is so consumed by jealousy or spite that she would forge evidence just to ruin his happiness. This is where the gaslighting reaches critical mass. Bill completely dismisses Scott's words. He doesn't just disagree with them, he invalidates their very existence. He brushes off the hard evidence as misinformation. He calls her findings worthless. He looks at empirical data and says, no, that's not real. It's epistemic closure at its finest. Bill has built a fortress around his belief in Hayley, and no amount of truth, logic, or reality is going to penetrate those walls. He has decided what his truth is, and anything that contradicts it is automatically labeled as a hostile, fabricated lie. Okay, I know I just said the opposite about him maybe subconsciously knowing she's guilty, but listen to me. What if his denial is so profound that it has actually altered his perception of reality? What if he genuinely, truly believes Scott is the bad guy here? That is almost more terrifying than if he were just lying to protect his pride. Because if he genuinely believes Scott is making this up, it means his grip on reality is entirely dependent on Hayley's narrative. He has surrendered his cognitive autonomy to a manipulator. And then, just when you think the confrontation can't get any more emotionally abusive, Bill pulls out the ultimate trump card. He weaponizes the concept of trust. He has the absolute nerve to remind Scott about trust, heavily implying that she is the one single-handedly destroying their bond by daring to bring these absurd allegations to his attention. This is emotional blackmail, plain and simple. He is forcing Scott into an impossible, agonizing binary choice. You either reject the evidence of your own eyes and ears and blindly trust me and, by extension, Hayley. Or you are a traitor who is ruining our relationship. By framing it this way, Bill completely absolves himself of any responsibility to investigate the truth. He makes it a test of loyalty. If you loved me, you wouldn't say these things. It's a classic manipulation tactic used to silence whistleblowers in toxic relationships. And you can just see the devastating impact this has on Scott. Let's shift focus to Scott for a minute, because her emotional journey in this scene is just heartbreaking. You can physically see the moment her heart shatters. She feels deeply, profoundly insulted. And it's not just an insult to her intelligence, although it certainly is that. It's an insult to her character, to her integrity, to their entire shared history. She brought this evidence to him not out of malice, but out of care. She wanted to protect him. And in return, he basically called her a delusional, jealous liar. In that agonizing silence, as Bill's harsh words hang in the air, Scott has a horrific realization. She realizes that Bill has made his choice. When forced to choose between the uncomfortable, ugly truth presented by Scott and the comforting, beautiful lie presented by Hayley, Bill chose the lie. He chose Hayley. He chose to protect a manipulator over listening to the person who has always had his back. The gravity of that realization is immense. It's like watching a building collapse in slow motion. All the trust, all the mutual respect they had built over the years, is just instantly vaporized by Bill's blind allegiance to Hayley. The confrontation ends, and the atmosphere is just suffocatingly cold. There's no screaming at the very end, no dramatic door slamming. It's worse, it's a dead, freezing silence. It's the kind of coldness that sets in when something fundamental has died. They have created a massive, gaping rift between them, and honestly, looking at how entrenched Bill is in his delusions, this feels like a rift that is completely unbridgeable. How do you come back from this? If someone steals from you, you can maybe forgive them. If someone lies about a mistake, you can work through it. But how do you repair a relationship when one person fundamentally rejects your reality? When they look at your truth and call it a malicious fabrication, you can't. The damage is structural. It strikes at the very core of how they relate to one another. Scott can never look at Bill the same way again, knowing that his loyalty can be so easily hijacked, and that he is capable of such aggressive gaslighting. And what about Hayley? She wasn't even in the room, but her presence was the loudest thing in that scene. She is the invisible architect of this entire disaster. She has so thoroughly poisoned the well, so perfectly positioned herself as the untouchable victim in Bill's mind, that she doesn't even need to defend herself. Bill does all the dirty work for her. He acts as her attack dog, viciously tearing down anyone who dares to question her. It is a masterclass in manipulation. I almost have to respect the sheer sociopathic brilliance of it. Maybe it doesn't matter, but I noticed in the background of a few scenes last week, Hayley was always subtly undermining Scott's credibility, planting tiny seeds of doubt. Oh, Scott seems so stressed lately, or I think Scott might be a little jealous of our connection. She laid the groundwork perfectly so that when the bomb dropped, Bill's defenses were already primed to attack Scott. So where does this leave us? Scott is now standing on the outside. She has the truth, she has the evidence, but she has absolutely no power because the one person who needed to listen has plugged his ears and closed his eyes. Does she give up? Does she burn the evidence and walk away, leaving Bill to his inevitable doom when Hayley finally drops the mask? Or does she double down? Does she take the evidence to someone else? But if she does that, she just proves Bill's point in his twisted mind that she is out to destroy Hayley. It is a brilliant, agonizing catch-22. And Bill, poor, stupid, arrogant Bill, he thinks he has won this argument. He thinks he has successfully defended his territory and protected the innocent. But he is currently living in a house of cards, and he just alienated the only person who was trying to reinforce the foundation. When the truth inevitably comes to light, because it always does, the truth has a funny way of clawing its way out of the dark. The psychological collapse Bill is going to experience will be biblical. He will look back at this exact moment. He will remember the desperation in Scott's eyes, the clear evidence in her hands, and the cruel, dismissive words that came out of his own mouth. The guilt and the shame are going to absolutely annihilate him. But right now, in this moment, he's just infuriating. The whole dynamic is so frustrating to watch because you just want to reach through the screen and shake him. You want to scream, "Look at the papers, Bill, just look at them," but he won't. Because looking at the papers means looking in the mirror and acknowledging that he has been played. And his ego simply cannot bear that reflection. Anyway, the main point is, wait, what's the main point? I guess the main point is that this single confrontation has completely rewritten the trajectory of the entire season. The battle lines aren't just drawn, they are carved into the earth. Scott versus Hayley, with Bill acting as the tragically oblivious human shield. I don't know how the writers are going to untangle this mess, but I am absolutely terrified and thrilled to find out. The emotional stakes have never been higher, and the betrayal cuts deeper than anything we've seen in a long time. Strange, really strange. I need to go lie down and process this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, if your brains aren't as completely fried as mine is right now.